also conditions that obviously could impact or in some way cross-contaminate the food, right? So this is like a health hazard on top of an OSHA violation, on top of all other infractions, right, that tend to go unnoticed or unreported because workers don't know that they have rights. Workers don't know that there's an opportunity to unionize, to address these substandard conditions they're subjected to. I worked in this condition at Weiss Markets. All vegans are simps? Vegans are simps? What do you mean? Are you saying that vegans are simps for animals? I don't think you're using the word simp right, my friend. Simps for who? Yeah, simps for animals? Animal simps. I mean, technically, I don't know if it's TOS. But it's a weird way to put it. Vegans are not simps. Simply amazing people. Yeah, that's right. If loving animals makes you a simp, then I guess, yeah. And also, veganism is not just having respect or acknowledging the dignity of animals, right? Or the inherent values of animals. It's also very closely tied to environmentalism at this point. The amount of water it takes to farm, right? To graze animals, that's to the detriment of our planet at this point. So let's not forget, if you mean that veganism is being a simp to our planet, then I'll take it. Jameson, thank you for resubscribing. 18 months in a row, tier 3. Good God. Thank you. South Park told me to hate vegans. I wish South Park would do a fucking episode telling people to, like, be a decent person and not be a piece of shit and not be a misogynist prick and not be fucking racist and not be bigoted in any way and care about the planet and support a Green New Deal and support housing for all as a concept and support a single-payer healthcare system and all of the other things that obviously could go a long way if dumbasses are really basing their entire personality and worldview off of what they learned from South Park. Stupid. What about land destruction for vegetable and fruit farming? Veganism in its current state just wrecks natural habitats to factory farm plants. Have you ever heard of vertical farming? Have you ever heard of, well, you mentioned factory farming. You know that you can hydroponics. There are so many ways that you can grow food and crops at this point without needing like agricultural land. That's not even a sound argument at this point. Yeah, it's expensive, but that technology is available and people are using it. South Park told me that actually things aren't that bad and caring about things that don't affect me personally is hysteria. God. Of course they did. The vast majority of crops grown in this country are used as animal feed. True. We raise more land farming food for livestock. Aquaponics is even better? All right. I'll take that.
America, and they understandably may be warier about complaining to authorities about mistreatment. So many workers are already operating at a deep disadvantage, on top of which companies have been able to minimize accountability by gaming the system. For instance, they are required to report serious injuries to the government's worker protection agency, OSHA. But there is a simple way around that, because you actually don't have to report those injuries if treatment stays at a first aid level. So what do you think happens? Well, as a GAO report found, plants simply offer first aid treatments on site rather than refer workers to a doctor. That same report found even workers with severe injuries like fractures weren't sent to doctors, with one worker who developed a musculoskeletal disorder making over 90 visits to the company's nurse before being referred to a physician. And the workers
Christ.
know the game that is being played here.
There's a nurse, but she doesn't do anything for you. For example, when our arms hurt, all she did was apply Bengay ointment and sent us on our way. It's not even worth going.
I needed to see a doctor, but they refused me. And I told them, well, can I go down to see my own orthopedics, my own specialist, my own doctor? And they said, if you do that, we're gonna fire you.
Look, there are lots of good reasons to fire
Amazon
someone.
does the
Frequent
same
absences,
thing.
poor quality of work,
Hi,
because they
everyone.
get a little racisty on
Amazon has
Amye.
on-site
But wanting
doctors.
to see a doctor really should not be one of them.
What good does a doctor do if the issue is that you have so much strain on your body, chronic pain, chronic strain, it leads to disorders that can't be fixed with a first aid kit? And you know what the worst part is? We're going to be making such a quick leap from talking about how working conditions in some of these factories are so subpar. It's inhumane to not having these job opportunities at all because we're moving to automation. And these are the types of jobs that will be automated sooner rather than later, I think. Right? These jobs are going to be the first on the chopping block. Probably. Maybe. But until then, the conversation is going to be about how poorly treated these workers how poorly treated these workers are in the workplace. Sorry, I'm blah 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 blah. I'm gonna shut up now.
And it's worth
Hi,
noting,
everyone.
if you do have a severe injury, it can be very hard to get relief. In theory, you could apply for workers' compensation, programs under which injured workers lose their ability to sue, but in exchange, can get money to cover medical treatment and lost wages. The thing is, those programs are run at the state level and paid into by companies who've lobbied hard both to hollow those benefits out and make them harder to get. Just before Texas overhauled its workers' comp system back in 1989, one poultry CEO, Bo Pilgrim, tried to personally influence proceedings in a pretty blatant way.
Senator Bob Glasgow of Stephenville says he's never been offered a blank $10,000 check. Not until East Texas Chicken King Bo Pilgrim strutted onto the Senate floor Wednesday. Senator Hugh Palmer of Fort Worth says Pilgrim then slipped him either a bribe or an illegal campaign contribution.
Well, I didn't think he was trying to give me a Christmas present, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, of course he wasn't, because Christmas presents aren't typically used as bribes. That is, unless you're a child of divorce. Here it is, Billy, a full-size motorcycle, just like you asked for. I think you should have it, and if your mother doesn't, well, that is on her. She's a difficult woman, Billy. And look, just a quick word about Bo Pilgrim here. He co-founded a company called Pilgrim's Pride, and blank checks to legislators aren't even the most shameless thing he spent money on during his life. Among other things, he had this 37-foot bust of his head installed next to one of his distribution centres and added this second statue underneath it depicting him reading a Bible to his pet chicken Henrietta. He also built this hellacious mansion which locals refer to as Cluckingham Palace and which included, among other atrocities, this absolute nightmare of a bathroom that fittingly has the exact colour scheme of a raw chicken breast and this nauseating foyer featuring a painting of what appears to be two peacocks fucking above some chickens while a perverted owl just watches. And it wasn't just Bo Pilgrim fighting workers' comp laws. Tyson has taken a lead in pushing for changes in workers' comp in state after state, which have made it harder for workers hurt on the job to receive payments. In fact, in Texas, it is now possible for companies to opt out of paying into workers' comp entirely and essentially write their own rules for how much workers get for their injuries. Tyson does exactly that. And when workers get injured in their plants there, in order to get medical care from the company, they must first sign a document saying they voluntarily release, waive, and forever give up claims arising from their injuries. Now, could you not sign that? Sure.
Do you want to hear something real fucked up? Just like inserting this real quick. I used to work in risk management. A couple departments included workers' comp management, claims, stuff. A workers' comp department in a healthcare facilities risk management department used to hire private investigators to follow employees who submitted workers' comp claims to see if they were telling the truth or not. That's how far some internal departments will go to see if an employee is faking it or not. Yeah. Yeah. Just to get out of comp claims? Yeah. To follow them around. Listen, even if a worker is injured, if a PI finds them doing anything that in some way undermines their claim, if they're walking when they have a sprained ankle, doesn't matter if they're dragging their ankle and they're limping, PI's job is to try to prove that the claim that was made was faulty in any way, shape, or form. That will then be given back to the company. The company will have a moment of confrontation. HR doesn't give a fuck. HR is looking to save as much money as possible. They don't want to dole out any additional money in a workers' comp claim. They will use that as an intimidation tactic and say, what is this? Are you really hurt? Do we need to fire you? And then ultimately this does in many respects lead to workers dropping the claim out of fear that they're going to be fired and then getting back to work. Injury, no injury, whatever the case may be. Yes, the point is to find a way to invalidate those claims, to find a way out of having to pay out a workers' comp claim. What happens when the PI files a most PIs are like freelance anyway. They work for themselves.
But then your best bet to pay for medical coverage is to sue the company, and that could take fucking years. And while Texas does now have a law giving workers 10 days to consider signing the waiver, before then, they could actually be pressured on the spot. At another company, an employee who'd had both of his hands crushed was persuaded to sign a waiver with a pen held in his teeth. And look, I know that this all sounds very bad, and it does imply that companies like Tyson...
Disgusting.
Yeah, it is. It really is.
All right, Kermit Gated, it's over, by the way. You made it. Holy shit. I love how angry he gets. He's very good at expressing his anger. He's an actor. That probably helps.